Hey there folks, the number one Horsegirl fan from the Infinite Jukebox here with another quick album review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Horsegirl record, Phonetics On and On. In 2022, Chicago-born indie rock trio Horsegirl made a bit of a breakthrough with their first LP, Versions of Modern Performance. Their first full-length album definitely drew heavily from noisy indie rock bands of the past, even featuring two former Sonic Youth members in the form of Steve Shelley and Lee Ronaldo, a band that is easily one of the most prominent influences that Horsegirl display on that record, and yet it was more than capable of highlighting a fresh take on an old sound provided by young and hungry musicians from Illinois. Phonetics On and On acts as a follow-up to Versions of Modern Performance, and it could certainly be seen as a bit of a letdown to those who were expecting Horsegirl to go in a more chaotic and abstract direction, like so many of their influences that came decades before them eventually did at one point or another. But rather than further distorting their sound, the three-piece's sophomore effort actually takes some time to stop and smell the roses, and they make everything a bit more twee in the process. And honestly, I think I slightly prefer it. I think it should be noted that this record still feels intentionally derivative of an older sound. It's just a different sound this time, but that is certainly not a bad thing in any way. Tracks like Switch Over and 246A and their relaxed jauntiness almost feel a bit raincoatsy in my eyes, and they embrace the sort of laid-back twee pop that came from that initial aftermath of post-punk's birth, where instead of everything being incredibly dark sonically, it was pretty bright, albeit intentionally sparse. That's a lot of what this record really represents, structurally speaking. I mean, for those who can appreciate a more minimalistic sound, Horsegirl pulls it off extremely well. I mean, as previously stated, Phonetics On and On frequently sees the trio step back and really just take away any extra embellishments, strip themselves down musically speaking, and that may have been something that drove away some people with this record. Not to say that this album is any weaker than its predecessor, but some people may have found making a more bare-bones record to not be the most appealing thing in the world as a follow-up to an album that felt significantly more dense than this at times. But as it stands, I don't know, again, I slightly prefer it. I think that they really nail it here. I don't know what else to say. I mean, despite being a group with very obvious influences, Horsegirl have previously proven themselves as a group of musicians with determination to differentiate themselves from the source material that they so often draw from, and the final result is an album that not only really does kill it when it comes to providing a certain sound, but it also manages to feel fresh and lively and energetic and just very easy to get into. It's a successful execution of a specific sound while at the same time feeling completely relatable, and a large part of that does honestly have to do with some absolutely outstanding production on this record, coming from indie favorite and acclaimed singer-songwriter experimentalist Kate Laban. For her behind-the-scenes work on this record, it really does have a major impact on this album. The entire record just feels so suitable when it's cozy and intimate. It just really suits the minimalistic style of this record. It feels easy to engage with, it feels easy to connect with and relate to, and that sort of atmosphere really does check out when you consider that this entire album was recorded in a mere couple of weeks in a brutally cold Chicago winter. It really does feel that this record is a live in the studio sort of experience. I mean, Phonetics On and On, musically speaking, is far away from being any sort of fireplace for you to warm your hands by or anything like that. In fact, it actually feels pretty cold at times, but it does feel like pleasant company in the middle of a midday chill. It's a pleasant experience overall, and it feels deeply personable, which is the kind of tone and vibe that one would hope for a record as stripped back as this one. I mean, it's that kind of intimacy that I feel really just does elevate the record to another level of excellency. I mean, it was already a good record from the get-go, but I feel like if this album spent so much time focusing on extra ideas or over-the-top, over-exaggerated ambitions, it could have lost a lot of its soul along the way. So the fact that it just feels like a very one-on-one experience between the listener and the band, it makes it feel that much more special and really does take it to another level. And it also allows the the deadpan vocals of Nora Chang and Penelope Lowenstein to highlight the sort of nuanced emotion of some of the more emotionally moving cuts here, like Julie, for example. I just think as a whole it's produced extremely well and manages to showcase a band in their rawest, most unfiltered form, and I can always appreciate that. Horsegirl's sophomore studio album is certainly more subdued as a follow-up to the trio's first full-length, but it remains a worthy continuation of the immediate quality that they delivered back in 2022. I mean, the twee influences on display here make it feel like something fresh for them. The quick and earnest means through which it was recorded really do show in the record itself in the best way possible, and the entire thing feels both vulnerable and musically impressive, both of which suit this sound and overall tone extraordinarily well. I mean, fans of the debut may be slightly put off by Horsegirl's rejection of any sort of maximalism on this record, even despite the fact that really Versions of Modern Performance wasn't necessarily the most dense record ever recorded, but I digress. It is the exact willingness that Horsegirl have to turn into something sonically and stylistically smaller while still conveying the same amount of creative ambition and emotion that makes this record feel as creatively large as it does, despite being, again, a very simplistic album in nature. I'm going to give this record 4 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that is the end of this quick album review. Thank you for watching the Infinite Jukebox, and I'll see you in the next one.